Hello, Adrian Plass here again.
Yes, and Bridget. This morning, I had a very interesting conversation with Adrian because I gathered that he had actually been deeply worried yesterday evening and all of last night and early morning.
Yeah, I was. I was really worried, and I'll tell you why. We were watching the television last night, and by the way, one of the difficult things during this time is you've got to ration your television, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Got to make sure you watch things you really want to watch and not too much. Anyway, could go on about that forever. Anyway, we were watching a program, and I suddenly realised that the left-hand side of the screen was higher than the right,
Mm-hmm.
and I could not focus my eyes on it properly. And I was really troubled, and it went on all evening. And in the middle of the night, I was thinking, somehow I've got to get out and get my eyes tested. Worst possible time, and probably impossible. And later on in the morning, I was just in despair. I put my hands up to my eyes, and I was wearing my glasses. And I suddenly realized there was no lens in one side. So there was absolutely nothing wrong with my eyes. It was just that I lost the lens in my glasses. So I'm fine. I've got an old pair that I found in a bag, and they'll do for now. So that's all right.
I do think it is actually a bit of a reflection of the situation we're in, though, isn't it? That something that one might deal with really quite easily can become a huge worry, especially in the middle of the night. But the resolution of this one, I must admit, is really quite extraordinary how you didn't
Yes.
realise that, but never mind.
Well, our giant Monet jigsaw is another thing that I worry about occasionally because it's creeping across the table it's on. It's taking up half the table, and we've still only done a bit along the bottom. And
Well, when you
bit
say
up the
we,
side.
I'm not
Well,
sure we
you.
mean we, but maybe you could use the excuses of the fact that you haven't got a very good pair of glasses and so can't actually differentiate between the sludgy green and the disgusting blue and the very pretty.
That's very true. But if you find me a space in a bit you've done
Right.
and ask me to find the piece to go in it, then, because I am obsessional, I shall go through the entire box and find it.
I shall do just that.
All right.
So what else have you been thinking about?
Well, I was really taken aback earlier today, seriously really, by a phone call with the funeral director who looked after my brother's cremation 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, just
My
over
brother,
2 weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, a bit more than that. My brother was in hospital down in Surrey, more than 2 weeks. And fortunately for everybody, really, it was before the lockdown started and everyone was being ultra careful
we were able
about
to get there,
everything.
weren't we?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got there. And he was able to be in a side room. And talking to the funeral director, who I gathered from my sister-in-law had been very helpful and very, very good in all this, she was saying how difficult it's going to be for them. And there was almost a vein of grief in what she was saying,
Yeah.
because she said, I really care about these people. And when I speak to them, I can't speak to them face to face anymore. And I don't know how I'm going to be able to do that, to be able to do the job I've always done as well as I've always wanted to do it. So there we are. There's another group of people
Another
I
group
never
on
thought
the front
of.
line, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So good for them. And I really do wish them the very best in their work.
And of course that applies to loads of ministers, doesn't it? Loads of leaders, I'm sure, of all faiths who have always been seen it as a privilege, really, to walk alongside families when they're grieving.
Yeah,
And they
absolutely.
actually can't visit, can't sit with that cup of tea, can't listen in the same way. Yeah, we do keep thinking about different groups who are affected by this, don't we?
Yeah, some big changes. One thing I was looking at, which I don't know whether it's interesting or not, but in the past, I'd be interested to know from people who are listening whether this is true for them. There is a bit of a point to this, if you just hang on. I have always designated a colour to every day of the week, right? And a while ago, I wrote about this, and I described the colour each day was, and to an extent, why it was that colour. So I'm going to tell you some of them. And if anyone has anything to tell me, if you want to email or something, it'd be great to hear from you. So, and they may be the same as mine, but they may not. And I don't know if Bridget's are the same or not. So let's start with Monday. Monday, for most people, for years of my life, was all grey and flat and meaningless because you had to go to work. But not for me, because I worked at home. I was writing in my study, and Monday was charmingly blue, and it liked me. And even if it rained, I was dry. Tuesday was sort of plump and squishy, I think. It was, don't know how to describe it, a sort of jelly-filled day. And I think it got pushed into all sorts of shapes by people who suddenly realised there were things left over from last Friday that should have been sorted out on Monday but weren't because they couldn't be bothered when they were putting up with all that rain.
Okay, so what colour is
Tuesday's green.
Tuesday's green, right.
Not a bright, happy green, but just a shade less green than the colour of mushy peas. Okay. Wednesday's brown, like a creosoted fence, a bit grown up with a flat sort of stern wooden DIY sort of voice, which tells everybody that I'm hopeless at DIY. And Wednesday tells you to get on with something practically for goodness sake, because the whole week becomes a waste of time. Sometimes Wednesday evening dresses up a bit, but I think between all of us, Wednesday's a bit up
it's
itself.
Good telly on Wednesday evening, though.
Actually, that is true. It's very good. Thursday is a bit of a unicorn of a day.
Right.
Colour, greyish, silvery grey maybe. I think Thursday is a woman. I think she wafts and waves and beckons us to the glittering path that will take us to Friday.
Okay, come on then. What colour is Friday?
Well, now you're talking. Now, we used to work down at Scargill House in Yorkshire, North Yorkshire. And there's a fish and chip place in Skipton, which is a few miles from there. And Friday, I always thought then, was a sizzling, fish-filled, crackling fire of a day. It was a good time to go to Busy Lizzie's, that was the fish and chip shop, and have a jumbo haddock and chips. Oh, wonderful. Friday, if you want to get to my heart, Friday is the colour of embers in a hot fire. Love it. Friday is also the best part of Saturday, without doubt. Saturday's yellow, almost golden, not quite. A stroll in search of exotic shells. You almost never find them, but you might. Saturday, I had such hopes when I was young in Saturday. Sometimes I've not been disappointed, but quite often I have. Sunday, what do you think of Sunday? What colour is Sunday?
For me?
Yeah.
I think it's the same colour as your Monday, actually. It's a beautiful blue.
That's very interesting. I mean, for me, Sunday was a sort of storm. Sometimes a dull storm, like, an unhappiness that never quite gets around to crying. And sometimes black skies with sudden amazing flashes of white light. I think that's made up from childhood, when Sunday was really boring, and later on Sunday having a whole new meaning because of having a faith and doing stuff with people. But I did always wonder whether Sunday had a bit of an identity crisis because of being squashed between Saturday and Monday. I tell you what I thought, and this will show you how mad I am. I used to think Sunday probably said, rather sadly, I think I could have been a Saturday. Actually, I think I was one once. I can't quite remember when, never mind, and just for the record, there's no way I'm responsible for Monday. So there's my days, and there are the colours of my days. And I'd love to know what other people make of that.
Oh, absolutely. And they're not the same colours as mine, interestingly enough. I think Monday is a kind of this stern colour that you were talking about for Wednesday. It's a sort of maroon or dark green, and I think that's to do with school colours and the fact that Monday was a day when I went to school and then I was a teacher, and there was always that sense you had to be a grown-up on Monday, not on Wednesday. I have no idea what Wednesday was for me, but interestingly Saturday was yellow, just like yours.
Oh, right, yeah.
But Sunday...
The Day of Hopes was Saturday, wasn't it? Yeah.
But then Sunday, you see, I think partly because you said about childhood. Well, I went to a Catholic school when I was little, And there was a lot of blue, as you can imagine, blue for Mary everywhere. But also there was a sort of, as I've grown older, a sort of rhythm to Sunday that I've always loved. I know I'm going to church. I know we're going to have a really nice dinner. I know we're probably, well, not at the moment, but hopefully see family, etc., etc., etc. So a nice, strong colour, really. And we would, as Adrian said, love to hear your colours, because colour is so important. It's so important. I am overwhelmed by the fact that we have spring in the UK. Now, I know that I think it's about 33 degrees in Queensland.
I think so, yeah.
And we heard from our friend from Edmonton.
Snow on the ground.
-10.
Yeah, I know. Incredible.
So the contrasts are quite great. But here in the UK, it's spring. And that just means colour after winter. It means a lot to me. And I'll show you why. I'm going to read you a little poem that Adrian wrote after he'd had a pretty major breakdown. And you know how they say about this horrible virus that you lose a sense of taste and smell. Well, I think if you're deeply depressed, you lose a sense of colour. And so for me, this tiny poem represented much more than an actual spring. It represented something new happening. Daffodils are not flowers. They are natural neon from the dark earth. Precious metal, grown impatient, beaten, shaped, and dipped in pools of ancient sunken light. Folded, packed, and parachuted through to stand and dumbly trumpet out the twice triumphant sun. And the other reason I think that I love the spring and I love the colour of spring is that we're walking with Jesus at the moment. We're in Jerusalem. And of course, one of the things that Jesus said at that time, trying to explain what was going to happen to him, was the time has come for the Son of Man to be given his glory. I tell you for certain that a grain of wheat that falls on the ground will never be more than one grain unless it dies. But if it dies, it will produce lots of wheat. The amazing thing during the winter is that all these bulbs are packed full of colour, full of hope. There's multiplication that we'll never see with bulbs and with snowdrops that you have a few of and then you have loads, all representing hope.
And I think there's something about that thing that Jesus said that really sits deeply in me. And because we preach it and talk about it in a way that's really difficult to comprehend, I think we miss the profound truth in there. I believe that within this universe, and anybody who's listening, I'm speaking to, there is a power in death that we know nothing about. When something dies or falls apart, something else does grow. Now, that isn't meant to hurt people who've lost somebody and
or make it
see
easy.
Nothing come out of it. But I think that principle, that sureness, that belief is not just to do with being a Christian, although Christians will certainly understand that. But it is a hope that lives in the very air. And in the springtime, in particular, you've only got to go outside and you will know that it is true. And we really do hope and pray for those who've suffered and gone into difficult times, that there will be a new life, and that you'll see that principle working for you. Anyway.
Don't forget to send us your colours.
Lovely to be with you again.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.